I'm Gloria Strode, and welcome to Straightforward. This is part 2 of our interview with the wonderful probate judge, Marc D'Antonio, who is doing so much for the citizens in our area, for the families that have special needs. He helps families to handle the business for those that have moved on from work to reward, doing so much in the courts with guardianships and trying to make sure people keep their civil rights. Definitely not just have the resume, but you have the heart for this job. And I know it's an elected position. A lot of folks don't understand, because they're not political junkies like me, that the probate judge is an elected official. But this is heavy lifting. What you're doing on a day-to-day, yeah, you marry people, that's the happy, fun part. Yeah, you swear in all the politicians, that's the happy, fun part. But there are some things that keep you awake at night because you want to do the right thing. So you went from the working in the community for kibbles and bits. Still not making much more than kibbles and bits, but
I'm doing a little better.
You're doing a little better. So now you don't have to be on the hamburger helper aisle. You can probably go on over to the hamburger where they have a hamburger meat. But no, that's just a little side joke, because people that work in social services, community service providers, it's not a job that you do to get rich. You do it because you want to change the lives for the others in the community. So.
Well, and that's true. Because I was blessed, I was availed of an opportunity to go to a very good law school. And
where did you go?
I went to Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt in Tennessee.
Go Commodores.
All right, then. Go ahead. Vanderbilt. I never knew that. And I had you on the show, years ago.
I went to Tulane as an undergraduate.
Okay.
And I'm looking forward to Tulane in the Cotton Bowl.
All right. And my friend, Dr. Deborah Daniels, MD, who's a VA doctor, she's Tulane Medical School.
Well,
all right.
And so I was after my first year of law school, I worked for some fancier law firms. And what I decided was I was less interested in saving a big corporation money than worrying about individuals. My next summer, I worked for something called Westchester Putnam Legal Services, representing low-income people in non-criminal matters. I thought, this is great. I want to do this the rest of my life. And the attorneys there sort of had a little bit of a, well, now here's the rude awakening part. Did you borrow money to go to law school?
You're going to have to pay it back. Well, you just can't do all this free stuff.
Well, and at the time, Georgia Legal Services Program had a loan forgiveness program that made it, I wasn't getting rich, as you're saying.
Right.
In fact, my starting salary was about the same as my wife's starting salary as a school teacher.
Really?
Which was not
a lot of money.
And
wow.
She started at Dawson Elementary School in 92.
Wow.
I was starting at Georgia Legal, I guess I started in 91, and because of the loan forgiveness, she netted a little more than I did. She probably doesn't want me to talk about it now.
No, really, now that's really, but that says you were not rich people.
Well, but I was able to help people.
Exactly, you were able to help people, and
we
your wife.
We got by.
Yeah, you got by, right. So you still over on the hamburger helper aisle, and then with her being a teacher at Dawson. And that's a traditionally.
She's moved up.
And she's moved up.
She took some time off when we had kids.
Right.
She's moved from. I think she misses Dawson in a lot of ways.
Okay, yeah, because that's like home.
Well, and now she's at Matthews Elementary School teaching. Is working in the media as a media specialist there.
Okay.
It's a very crowded school compared to Dawson. Had a more of a family feel.
Yes, and Dawson is over where you have Chester's Barbecue and is right across the street, and so it was
First
more.
time I discovered Chester's grocery store.
right there on North Star, and of course it is a very close-knit community. So that's where she first started her career. Right. Wow. So how did you end up picking Columbus?
The loan forgiveness had something to do with it. So,
no,
and actually, to be, with my wife, she had gone to Auburn for a year.
Okay.
And when we were looking at locations, I was discussing with the office in Waycross, Georgia.
Oh Lord,
and
nothing's in
discussing
Waycross.
with the office here, and my wife pointed out that at least there was a rock and roll station in Columbus.
Actually, Waycross.
Well,
she's right.
Well,
she's right.
She was there she was at Auburn in '84 before transferring. So
right.
Frank Thomas,
Yes.
Charles Barkley.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
you know,
superstars.
You had Bo Jackson. You had
Oh yeah.
big sports teams
Yeah.
at Auburn then. But
Okay.
that was part of the influence. And actually, the other thing was when I met the staff at Georgia Legal Services, including Paul Kaufman and Rudine Nelson.
And Rudine, I've been knowing her since I was a little girl.
Well, and Arnez
Yes.
Cherry.
And Arnez Talley is a maiden name.
Yes,
Yes,
it is. Well, they took me in and treated me like family.
Yes, and they are great people.
And
Yes.
and that's how we really worked at Legal Services for a long time.
Okay, so
That
if you
was my
were with
family.
that team, that's family.
Yeah.
You'll always be family.
Well, and they always will be family with
Oh,
me too.
absolutely, absolutely. And they have a heart for the community. They've been out working there for a very long time, and I know Arnez and Ruby very well. So great people.
Then they have been on. Miss Cherry and I would get out into the counties a lot of times.
And the rural.
Well, I remember spending a lot of time driving to Montezuma, Georgia.
Oh,
with
Lord,
Arnez.
nothing's in Montezuma. Nothing. Well, they do have, I think, the Amish or
Yeah, it's a
the
lot of
Mennonites
towns.
or something,
Right.
and they have great restaurants there. I've heard about those because, I was with the Census Bureau, which
Right.
you and I served on the redistricting, and you were the chair for the 2020. So,
But there's definitely some poverty in Macon County, and there was a
Yes.
lot of huge needs.
Yes.
Like Macon County holds a special place in my heart because I was the legal aid lawyer helping them after the flood with Tropical Storm Alberto in 1994.
Really? I didn't know
So I
that.
spent a lot of time in the beautiful twin cities of Montezuma and Oglethorpe.
Well, my husband has a connection there because we had a warehouse, Procter and Gamble, which was there.
Right, the paper mill.
Right, was there, Procter and Gamble, and it was nothing there but that. And so if you were there in the 90s, truly there was nothing there but that. But I didn't know that you had actually gone out into some of those, which are some of the poorest counties, 2nd Congressional District of Georgia, in the nation. Not just the state, in the nation. So if you were out there doing work, it was work to be done.
There definitely is, and there's actually a dearth of attorneys in these communities too. There's some counties, I want to say Macon County maybe has 2 lawyers right now.
Really?
And there are a number of counties in southwest Georgia, west central and southwest Georgia that don't have any attorneys.
Really?
Now, granted, Webster County is kind of small.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't have any lawyers that live there. I want to say, and I haven't looked at these statistics in a while, but there were a good 10 counties or so in the state that had no attorneys.
Wow.
And there were a number of, there's a number of counties with 1 or 2 attorneys.
That's scary.
Well, and those are usually in poorer counties, and there's still as much of a legal need there. In fact, Georgia Legal Services, one of the frustrating things I had was having to tell a lot of people that really needed my help that I couldn't help them because we just had 6 lawyers serving 21 counties around Columbus.
Oh, wow, that's something. Okay, well, what we're going to do is go to our first break to our sponsors, and we'll be right back. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors.
Straightforward is brought to you by State Senator Ed Harbison, serving the citizens of Georgia's 15th Senatorial District and on the front lines for veterans every day. The Columbus Memory Center, 7196 North Lake Drive, Suite A, Columbus. Dr. Jonathan Liss is a board-certified neurologist and sleep specialist committed to battling Alzheimer's by preserving independence, offering you the opportunity to get your memory number for free, the only vital sign for brain health. Call today at 706-327-4000 or visit columbusmemorycenter.com. The Miley Agency, 4903 Armour Road. Gerald L. Miley and William Ripsinger have been providing comprehensive reviews and insuring families in Georgia and Alabama for more than 50 years. The Miley Agency will work non-stop to find you the best policy at the best price. You can rest assured that your information is secure, confidential, and protected. Call today at 706-996-2045.
And welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing this visit. This is part 2 of our visit with the one and only probate judge, Marc D'Antonio. I tell you, I did not realize how much work you had done throughout the 2nd Congressional. When you say 21 counties around this area, then pretty much.
I spend a lot of time in Americus, and
Yes.
down to Leesburg. and
Yes. That's a lot of geography.
Cuthbert and Fort Gaines even.
Yeah, Fort Gaines. So we going to Randolph County, and then we're going on down to Clay County, which is, when you were down there, nothing was down there. And guess what? Nothing is still down there. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but with the census, the 2020, it's just to see from 10 years to the next 10 years. It's not a lot there. So those were the counties that really needed you all. Really needed you all.
I was just visiting the Clay County probate judge recently passed away, but I was down there trying to help him with a case involving a woman in a nursing home.
Really?
So I was down in Fort Gaines not too long ago.
Wow, to your old stomping grounds. Okay, so you went from Georgia Legal Services, and then happy that we got you. We had that loan forgiveness. That was a blessing for us. And then you worked with Judge Lumpkin before in this role?
Right. Well, when I left Georgia Legal Services, I was hired as the chief clerk of the probate court.
Okay.
I also spent a year, because of salary issues, working for as a special assistant attorney general for the Department of Family and Children's Services in Sumter County.
Oh Lord! So over in Americus?
So I was spending one day a week in Americus, and then the rest as chief clerk here initially. That was too much.
Yes.
And so
that road fatigue, and it's a lot.
I let the DFACS stuff go, but it was an interesting learning experience too. And
but see, that helps you with what you're doing now, because you had that bird's eye view. You saw on a daily basis what that looked like versus someone, and that's not a negative, I mean, it's a positive, from someone that maybe came from corporate. They don't understand all the things that happen with families and children and, all of that. So you had the Georgia legal, then you worked with the legal side of some things with Department of Family and Children's Services. You were the right person for this role. I mean, you had everything.
Well, and coming in here, there were some things that Judge Lumpkin, having been the judge for a while, had a better understanding of, but in terms of some issues related to poverty and public benefits, I definitely was an asset.
Exactly.
And I worked here as the chief clerk, hearing officer, and pro-hack judge from 2006 to 2009. In 2009, the Georgia legislature changed the law so that the probate court could have associate judges. I actually became the first associate judge in the state of Georgia. I know that because I was sworn in the day after the law went into effect.
Really? So you're a trailblazer. I can see that. Yes.
So I was the associate judge from 2009, and then when Judge Lumpkin decided to retire in 2012, that's when I ran for elected office. So it's really hard for me to believe that I've been the elected official in the probate court for going on a decade now.
But you're the right person at the right time with all of the right training. That is my opinion, and I mean what I say. No, because we have to look at it independently. To have worked with the great people like Rudine and Arnez over at Legal Services, to go to Sumter, and then to work with Department of Family and Children's Services. You're all briefly, but still you were able to peek in to see what that means. Because people can always speak on things, but if they've never really had the opportunity to get the bird's eye view, they don't really understand how all of that goes. So when you get a case coming into this courtroom, you can look at it from a different perspective than for someone that only had corporate, which is nothing wrong with corporate. But when you've been dealing with intangibles, it's different when you're dealing with humans. And like you said, before you make a decision about something, you put yourself in that person's shoes. What would I feel like if they took my civil rights? And so for you to say that, that really touched me at my core, because I'm like, okay, so they might say I'm crazy, but if they go tell Judge Marc D'Antonio I'm crazy, he's going to make sure that I'm crazy. And Gloria Strode is crazy before he takes my rights. And that's really important, though. And you said everyone is entitled to due process.
Right. And I also want to, I'm not even that crazy about the word crazy.
I was speaking to myself about myself, because people say, oh, Gloria Strode is crazy. But if they come and tell you, because in the old days, they could take people to Milledgeville and just turn them in. See, we're not doing that anymore. That was where the state hospital was. But just to joke about myself, and I can joke about myself, so If he came in here and said, she's crazy, you're going to make sure.
Right. Well,
You're
I
going to
mean,
make sure.
but
Right.
you know, but as I said, I really over a course of a person's lifetime, 20% of us will have a mental illness.
Really?
So I think it's very important. It affects all of us, and if it doesn't affect us as the individual with the mental illness, it's definitely something that's going to play into our family.
Yes, and that's the thing I liked about Rosalind Carter. Her special project was mental health. We can't just lock people away. We can't just pretend it doesn't exist. And the guy that used to be on CNN, and I always followed him as he traveled, you know, and then mental illness just made him take his life. And I was just, Anthony Bourdain, I was devastated because I look forward to traveling on TV with him every Sunday. But like you said, it touches every family. People might not talk about it, and in the old days, people hid people.
Well, and we need to get away from that.
We do.
Just like, and this was a little bit before my time, because there weren't as many good treatments, people would sometimes whisper about someone having cancer.
Yes, that's true.
And now people are comfortable saying, I have cancer.
Exactly.
And we need to get that same way with folks with mental illness. It's really no different than having a brain disorder is no different than having a broken arm or heart disease or anything else. It's some of the things that affect us all as being human beings. And the more comfortable we get talking about mental illness, the better I think people will be more willing to accept treatment. People will
and
also
admit that they need help. Because a lot of people hide or they self-medicate. I worked at South Florida State Mental Hospital. They're using drugs or alcohol. And all that does, and a lot of our veterans with PTSD, all that does is just
exacerbates it.
Exactly. And then people are having episodes. And so we just have to start being honest about all of that. But again, and I know you're very humble. You don't like talking about yourself. You know, I served on the committee where you were the chair. You're very humble. But you were the right person for this role. You brought all the skills. You were prepared. And you worked for Kibbles and Bits before you got here. Because you were preparing. And I just think it's a blessing that we have you. What we're going to do is take our break with our sponsor. We'll be right back. We'll be right back after word from some of our sponsors.
Apple Tax Services for the best in tax preparation. 7413 Whitesville Road, Columbus. Call for your appointment today at 706-243-2590 or 706-243-2595. And remember, an apple a day keeps the audits away. Progressive Funeral Home. Family owned and operated since 1952. The George Ford legacy of high standards continues today in the compassionate and professional services provided. A touch of dignity for those who care. Progressive Funeral Home, 4235 St. Mary's Road. Trusted by generations.
And welcome back to Straightforward. I'm continuing this very important conversation with our probate judge, Marc D'Antonio. The perfect person for this role. I think it was a blessing from God that you are here with all of the training and the skills that you had in the counties, working with families on a day-to-day basis. It gave you the perspective and the insight that you needed. You were saying that when you first came to the court, you all were dealing with approximately how many cases?
In the 800s.
800s. And where are you now in a year's time?
We're well over 1,100 this year.
Well over 1,100.
And our staff has grown by one employee since 2006.
One employee. So you've had that large of an increase in the caseload, and you have one additional employee.
Right.
And you're working with all of these other matters outside of what John Q. Public and myself thought probate court was, which was marrying people, those little licenses, you know, when somebody died. And you made a comment, we were having a sidebar, where you prefer to work on the living issues. Those are more important, all important, but that's more important because you're still working with people that are alive. And of course, people that have passed away, their estate, that's a different matter.
Well, it's still very important.
It's important.
And one of the things I do want to point out, I have a phenomenal staff. And
I know.
And I try to be a very accommodating boss.
Yes.
And actually try to be very receptive to feedback.
Mhm.
One of the things I think some judges get in trouble with is when they're used to being told yes.
Yes, and sometimes the answer needs to be no because they are humans. You don't have robots working for you.
When I need that I want that feedback. I
Mhm.
want anyone in my, I want my staff to be comfortable enough telling me when I really messed something up.
See, that's what a real leader is. It's a difference between being a boss and a leader. Because if you're a boss and you just want to bark orders and you don't want to hear, but a real leader wants to hear what they can do, that it makes the whole work environment better and the team better.
Well, that makes us be able to deal with more cases with not that many more people.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly, with minimal staff. Let me say that when we came in today, you were having a conversation with one of your staff people, and it was an exchange. I admired that. It wasn't you were not giving directives. And then you were explaining why you were saying what you were saying. And it wasn't something confidential, but you were saying this is that. And I thought, that's really cool. It wasn't like, I'm here and you're there. This court don't operate like
Well, and
that.
actually, I will say one of the things I did learn about leadership working at Westchester Putnam Legal Services, the executive director for legal aid there, was a Harvard Law School grad, had recently argued a case in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Oh.
Then someone came into the office and had messed themselves and maybe had an accident in the bathroom too. I saw this gentleman get the mop and bucket out and clean that bathroom.
Okay.
And I'm like, and what? As the young kid, that was very impressionable to me.
Exactly.
That here's the executive director, a Harvard Law School grad, cleaning up somebody else's poop.
Right. So it was nothing that was too beneath him.
Well,
or he wasn't too high on the scale to do it.
I will not ask someone in this office to do anything I'm not willing to do.
Oh, I love that.
Well, I think that is actually a good leadership skill.
It is a good leadership skill, and I saw you as a leader of our redistricting commission. And you wanted to make sure that you were being fair, that everyone was being heard. That's very important because I've served on boards and commissions where people just want folks to rubber stamp. But you were like, no, we're going to be fair. We're going to listen to everybody. Let everybody have their say. We're going to listen to the audience. And that way, when it's all done, people walk away. People feel valued and they feel heard. And I think that's important. That cuts down on a lot of resentment and dissension. So that's why when you walk in here, in your court, in your office, it's very welcoming. People not mad. You know how you go in some places and everybody in the place is mad?
You just caught us on a good day.
No, I've been here before, but it's because of that leadership and that spirit. I don't want us to run out of time, but I want you to share with our viewers things that they should be planning for in this new year. If they don't have them, they need to get them. We said that the advanced
directive for healthcare
and estate planning if you have special needs.
And that would be part of that's definitely if you have a child with special needs, you should talk to somebody that has expertise in that area about what are the best approaches to make sure that person will have supports in place when other folks have passed on.
Okay.
I actually think it's very important for folks to have wills.
Yes.
And to actually not necessarily just download it off of the internet or because you need to understand the consequences of leaving property to many grandchildren.
Right.
The need for putting somebody in charge to make sure that taxes get paid, that things get done. That's the best way for you. By planning ahead, having a will, and telling everyone what your wishes are.
Telling everyone. See, that's important.
Well, some people are going to be private because they don't want to tell the kid that they're cutting out. But
it's better to tell them than for them to get to the funeral and we have all of this drama.
Or afterwards.
Right, in your court and all the drama, right.
Well, no, so I really think actually if you want to make sure your wishes are followed, let everyone know what your wishes are before you pass. And if you change your mind, let them know that too.
I think that's very important. And that way we're upfront. There are no surprises. We won't have all of that drama because I've seen it.
And there still can be some drama. There are things related to There's laws related to second spouses that some people are surprised about when they come to court. But they're important laws and they're in place, and that's actually why I would always encourage people to talk to a professional about the consequences of a year's support versus a will and how they might interact with each other and some of the other things that can come on.
So we need to have those tough conversations up front.
Right.
Don't just be real cowardly about it and just let people fight it out after you've passed away.
The worst thing to happen is when, and I've had this with a case involving a disposition of somebody's body. He clearly had an intent. He had bought funeral plots, but he didn't tell anyone.
Oh.
So his wishes were not clearly articulated to his family, and that resulted in more problems than I bet you he would have wanted to have.
How about that? So be clear, lay it out, tell people what you want, and to have those tough conversations on the front end. Okay, so what are your office hours and where are you located?
For now, we're on the 6th floor of the Government Center.
Okay.
We're open from 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Obviously, I'll be here for emergency issues and things like that. Otherwise, you can walk in. We also, as an added service, accept passports on a daily basis from 8:30 to 3:30.
Okay, didn't
So
know
you can
that.
walk in and get your passport accepted. We don't do any more processing other than helping them with the U.S. Department of State. But that is a service that we added a year or two ago.
All right, you are doing a great job. I support you 100%, and we are going to be behind you, cheering you on, because you're doing our community a great service. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right. This has been Straightforward. If you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Until next time, be blessed.
What up, world? What's up, Columbus? Be sure to tune in every Sunday, Straightforward with Gloria Strode, right here on NBC 38.